Is your mind like this? I know people that when they read, they say, I just can't remember anything that I've read. And 15 minutes after they've put their book down, it's gone. It's gone. And it's as if the words go into here, but they all go through the holes and nothing really stays. Well, what these people don't know about is active reading. That when you read, there's different ways to read when you read. It's not all the same thing. And active reading is when you actually try to pay attention and you find little ways to sort of stay engaged. Mortimer Adler, he wrote a book called How to Read a Book. Isn't that interesting? And he has this to say: the rules for reading yourself to sleep are easier to follow than are the rules for staying awake while reading. I think that's so interesting, and some people have never learned to do a different kind of reading than they do when they're falling asleep. And, well, how do you do that? Hey everybody, welcome to the Sanctus Forum. That's us, and I am Michael Stewart Robb, better known as Mike. The Sanctus Forum is a part of the Sanctus Institute, an institute for spirituality and theology in Europe. And here on the channel, we try to help people read better books better. We do some other things too, but we want to help people read better books better. And part of that is just learning how to find those better books, and then once you've got them, how to read them better. And I've done a few of these videos so far. This is going to be the fourth one. See, I did the English way of counting there. Fourth one. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I'm just about to do it, so it's not, nothing really to look forward to. How to remember what you read. That's what I want to talk about. And now, for those of you who have been watching the channel, you may have noticed that I talked at the beginning of the year about a documentary that we were producing. That documentary does exist, and it is largely done, and we just need a little bit more. We're trying to make a trailer for it so that you can get excited about watching it. If you sign up for our almost monthly newsletter over at Sanctus.Institute, you will find out about this and at least stay in touch with us to know how to pray for us and what we actually do in Europe. Sanctus.Institute is where you find that almost monthly newsletter. So head over there and come along for the ride. Okay, so 5 tips on how to remember what you read. And the first one is kind of straightforward. It's read slowly. Now, I think a lot of times there's just so many books to read, and we think, well, we got to get this one done in order to read the next one. And you're just going to have to take your foot off of the brake in order to get more out of what you're reading. It's just not a race. And so if you have identified a good book, why not just read it at its own pace? And I'll admit that certain books have a certain pace, and some can be read quicker than others, and some really are written to be read slowly. One of the ways of doing that is not giving yourself a deadline for when it needs to be done and finished. You just have your set times in which you're reading, and eventually it will get done. But the point is to retain what you're reading and not just to finish what you're reading. The second thing to mention is underline. Underline in your book, okay? You want to identify the things in those chapters, on those pages, that are worth saving. And this is part of active reading. You're going to always, anytime I read a nonfiction book, I always have something like this I actually use a highlighter. Where's my highlighter? It might be considered bad practice because I don't know. You don't necessarily need a highlighter. This can underline just as well as a highlighter. And for example, here's a book that I'm reading now. Systematic Theology, Volume 1, Doctrine of God, Catherine Sonderegger. It's a good book. And so you can see here, I have underlined things in purple. I actually have a system of sort of double underlining because sometimes I really want to emphasize something, and so I will, looking for an example of it here. So you see I have added pen underlinings to my highlighted underlinings. But you don't need this, and in fact you don't even need to underline in the sentence. All you need to do is put a little line on the outside of the margin here, right? You just put a line down there, and that's a kind of minimalistic way of marking things. But don't be afraid at all to write in your books. This is your book, okay? The point of it is for you to read it. You're the one that needs to understand it. Nobody else needs to look at it and see what's inside of it. It doesn't need to be made into a museum. It's for you. So you're the one that needs to actually get that information. All right. So make sure you I always have a pen and a highlighter, but at least a pen next to me in order to write. Sorry, I said in order to write, in order to underline. I'm thinking of writing because that's actually the third tip. The third tip is write. And by writing, I mean using words, putting words either in the book. You see here's a good one. See, all this is what I mean, right? You write in the book. You write your words. See, this is a way of paying attention, and that is the main reason why you're doing it. It's not to write a book yourself. It's just to sort of help you pay attention while you're reading. So you're asking questions, you're outlining the book in the book. You don't actually even have to write it in the book. There are different ways of writing. You can actually have a notepad next to you. This isn't my notepad for this, but just sort of making notes about the book while you're reading the book. You can do that too. I mean, the more that you do like that, the more you're going to retain, the more you're going to get out of the book, the more active you're going to be, more active you're going to read. Having trouble with words today. So you just have to, come at the book with your own questions, and you're kind of critiquing the book as you read it, and comparing it to other things that you read, and asking questions. And don't discount just the need to write down main themes. I mean, just repeating what the author said. But you're going to do this in words. You're going to use a pen, and you're going to write down things while you're reading, or after you're reading. You just write little summaries of it. You use a notebook and you write. The fourth tip I've got for you is to create, and this is I think going to be a new one for some people. I hope so. An index. Create an index. So this is my book, John Cassian, The Institute. It's an old book. And so here's the thing. You read a book, you do this sort of active underlining, writing, and all of that. And then a few months go by, a year goes by, the book's on your shelf, and you know that there were some important insights in that book. You might even know what they are, but it's a big book, and where are you going to find them? Well, that is the point of an index. An index, I always do it in the back of the book. It's basically wherever you find a blank page. Write down the page number and write down the ideas. I mean, as little as possible, because some of these, they can fill up all of the blank space back here. But just keeping track of where the good stuff is. Now, in a sense, this is what you're going to be underlining and making notes for in the text, but you're going to put it all here in the back so that when a year later you're like, oh yeah, what was it about the institutes that was so good? All I have to do is I flip to this, I read this page, and I've got it. And I even know where it is because I've got all the pages marked in here. Now, I really should do this more. I maybe do it 50% of the time. I hope that's not an exaggeration. And sometimes I will go back and do it. I'll realize I haven't done it and I'll go back and do it. It's an extremely good practice, especially if you're somebody like me who needs to refer back to reading for the purpose of writing or for speaking or for teaching, and you need to sort of get stuff from these books. Index. It's a way to sort of remember more, and you see exactly how that works. I have here on that page the main things that I want to remember from that book. The fifth tip is something, should be kind of obvious, but it's read the book again. Read it again. Books are not one-use objects. They're multiple-use objects, and particularly for those books that you found excellent, read it again. Obviously, here's a book, The Knowledge of the Holy, A.W. Tozer. I'm pretty sure I read this 3 times. I think 3 times. I just pulled this off the shelf. As you can see, I'm doing things with God, Doctrine of God, who is God, and you can even see from my highlights, I've got multiple colored highlights in here, and you can kind of see here's the yellow phase and then the orange phase. The interesting thing, I used to really block out my highlighting, like here. Look at this. It's like all yellow, right? I used to think that was important. Actually, you don't need to use that much ink. But read it again, really, to get all you need to get out of this book. And I'm sure these 2 or 3 times that I've read that's not going to be the last time I read that book, because it's a good book, and it's been important to me, and I want everything possible that I can out of a book like that. Well, 5 tips, 5 things that you can do. Read slowly, underline, write, create an index, and read the book again to remember what you're reading. Because the point is not just to sort of put books onto your shelf or to sort of say, oh yeah, I read that book and I read that book. It's to get this stuff into our lives, into our minds, and therefore you're going to have to remember it. And so I hope that these tips have been helpful, and if they are, then you can like this video with your finger. You can also subscribe to the channel and just stay in touch with us. Check out those other 3 videos on reading. I hope this isn't the last one, but it's been fun to do these things. And keep reading. See you next time. Bye.